Hi everyone, welcome to our first talk of the day, Digital Waves. I'd like to introduce Joel Kwong, Henry Middleton, Chris Cheung, and Denise Tsui.
Thank you, Sarah. So my name is Denise, and it's my pleasure to be joined by our speakers today. I'll give a very quick introduction just so you know where we're all coming from. On the far end, we've got Henry Middleton, a former MTV Asia executive. A large part of his work has been in TV media, navigating organizations including MTV, Discovery, BBC, Animal Planet, MediaCorp, through cable satellite, multi-channel, digital, and streaming developments. His personal projects, which I thought was very interesting, range from designing and building a house and several renovations to researching and studying child development, youth subcultures, and dementia. Henry lives in Hong Kong, currently building financing for a new venture. Next to him, we have Chris Cheung, best known for installation art and audiovisual performance. If you attended last year's Art Central, you will also have seen his work through UOB over there. His artistic expression depends very much upon electronic sound, image, and creative technology in new media. And then to my right, we have Joel Kwong, international media art curator, writer, producer, and educator based in Hong Kong. She's currently the program director for Microwave International New Media Arts Festival. So let's dive right in. So my first question for you guys, what interests you to work at the intersection of art and technology? And for Henry, what interests you about getting involved in all this?
I think the main thing for me is where art, well, if we forget the expression side, art gives visibility to the invisible and some kind of physical even to the conceptual. So my interest has always been when artists show me something that is existing but it hasn't been seen by my eyes, or shows me something that I've seen but in a different way. And I find digital art now is not only extending and expanding that range, but enhancing as well. And the more and more technology we have and see and use, it's fascinating to me that whatever you think it was built for and function, and whatever it was meant to do, artists can find something else that actually gives a new meaning or a new use or a new function or and actually a new enjoyment and another way of even using that tool.
Yeah, for Chris, maybe introduce your practice a little bit for us.
Yeah, for my practice, as a media artist, I'm very much depending on tools, and for the technology, it's actually kind of a medium that I love to use because somehow if I can use those as for a painter, like they use brush and paint, but if as a media artist, I use technology to create different purpose or different artistic for my artworks. So that's why somehow I will use different available technology or available tools for me to create my art installations or performance. Yeah, that open up a lot of different varieties and also different directions for my artworks. Yeah.
Do you find that compared to, say, a painter using the paintbrush, various tools associated with painting, or a sculptor, everything has a discipline. But with new media art and with technology, you're constantly learning new mediums, new technologies.
Yeah, for example, recently there are a lot of topic about NFT, blockchain, metaverse. Yeah, these are all a new topic we can use or we can apply it in our creation. So maybe later we can talk more about on recent.
Do you find that more challenging for you as an artist, or actually that excites you, the challenge to continually learn?
Yeah, that's always challenging because technology is always updating. Yeah.
Do you get surprises, Chris? when you start something and you think this is the way of using it, and then suddenly something
Yeah.
kind of
So
comes
that-
out.
So
and you
that's why sometimes the idea will keep evolving. When you're doing some your works, there's some a new available tools or technology came up, and you can change a little bit on your final outcome. Yeah, that's also I think that's also the most interesting me to more fascinating me for creating this kind of new dialogue. Yes.
Joel, I imagine that happens to you a lot when you work with artists.
Well, I'd love to share a little bit on how I start my career. Well, because I grew up in Hong Kong. I read books, I paint, I attend leisure activities. It's easy to find a way to express ourselves. Well, until I was studying in Hong Kong University, and then I attend a program, a general education program. And then the first time I encounter a new art form for me is video art. I watch a lot of video arts by that time, but I totally don't understand what that is because it's not narrative. And then so much things related to light and space, speed and time. And then I met my mentor, Alan Powell, and then a very famous Hong Kong media art curators and video artists. And then she taught me a lot. By that time, she opened my eyes that, oh, there's something else in the world. It's not only traditional art form. So that's a new kind of expression. So that's how I start. And then eventually I attend different activities, events related to new media technologies, which different kind of interactions, audience engagement, that part really fascinated me. The first time I know that technology is not only the things that ease our life and then we can use daily life, but also is a new way of expression. And then as you guys talk about just now, technology evolve every day. So every day these fascinations happens in our life. And then that's how I and my friends and artists are doing it now.
Maybe tell us a bit about microwave, because over time, I mean, I've seen only a few iterations, but the technology used by the artists involved actually always fascinate me because they're not the most common. They're not the ones that you're going to come into an art fair and see, for example.
Well, Microwave is a media art festival in Hong Kong since 1996. So we've been through over 25 years here. It's a festival supported by the Hong Kong government and then funded by Alan Powell as well. And then every year we, based on different curatorial directions, usually the topic is related to our daily life, general public. And then every year we base on our research and then curate exhibitions, conference programs, and then we touch many different topics, including space arts, deep space technology, bio-arts, biotechnologies, and then obviously AI nowadays. All these technology, every year the topic actually evolved from the last year edition. Though it's not that narrative, but it relates.
Thank you. I'm curious though, have you started working with hologram? Which is not either of you. It's not a super new technology, but it's, I know it's upcoming and it's relatively expensive.
Hologram. I did, but for some commercial. Did you?
You mean hologram installation? Yeah, I did.
Or
yeah, the one commissioned by Microwave like 10.
sorry, it's just too long time ago.
Long time ago,
years
yes.
ago.
It was memorable, Chris.
But that one would be not exactly a hologram. It's like Papago's optical illusion. But I know that there's some new technology about project some beams and particles.
Very
and
Star Wars, yeah.
Yes, that is a new technology that using high energy particles to create some kind of high energy photons and then to project on the air. So you will see those latest screen or display would be like a 3D hologram in the future, just like the movie Star Wars or something like that. Yeah.
But is something like that actually showing what the software can do rather than it being or not software, whatever the tech can do, rather than it actually being an art form?
Yeah, for me, I always see these new technologies not necessarily straight away as an art form, but a potential as a new art medium that artists, curators, practitioners can adopt. But of course, easy for me to say, not so easy since I'm not the one making it.
Yeah.
Well, we have to explore new technology like almost every day, actually, to push the boundaries. Sometimes it's not about, new or old.
Yes.
It's about how we use mediums and platforms. Sometimes it's the new way of use instead of it's new technology or cutting edge thing. It's how we thought about the whole media archaeology and then pick different era and then different form of media and then we applied our concept on it and then make experiment.
But does that, okay, so with me there's very much the creativity, the creator, the creativity, and the production. There's the platform, and then there's the consumer. And we very rarely talk about the way we consume art. Even, with television, everything became platform, and how you use the platform to deliver a channel, to deliver a brand, ultimately to deliver revenue. So there's that part where how do we consume? Are you conscious of setting up a platform for it to a consumer to consume the art or the presentation of it in a certain way? So there'll be people here who walk around an art fair that basically is set up for a selling commercial event. But they may never go to a gallery to look at a curated show with a theme and a concept behind it and through it. And there's that part where, but at least we've decided to come in or come out digital. We can pass it, it can hit us, we don't even know we're even sharing it, seeing it sometimes. So you get to the consumption and absorption of it in what we all know is a completely visual, violent, overloaded world. And I know with the audio, even now we're either assaulted by audio, or we shut out audio and only give ourselves our own. So how do we look at consuming? Because if we're not careful, it's always about create and present, and we forget how we consume, or don't think about how we consume.
I think it's interesting because when we use a new medium to create artwork, as an artist or as a media artist, I also observe how people interact or how they consume the new medium. Giving example, for example, like the latest blockchain, very hot topic issue. When we're talking about creating blockchain art, we also observe how the people buy the artwork, or they using the smart contract to create this kind of new format of artworks. So as an artist, I already regard myself as I would say the depth of offer. When I creating a new artwork through the new medium or whatever, I will let the consumer to define their way to how they see it and how they experience it. Yes, I think that would be.
Audience engagement is always really important, honestly, especially when we're trying to define media arts. Well, I have to borrow that definition from a professor in School of Creative Media. He always explained it to me. Media arts is something, art form, and the media is a communication platform, no matter it's through the air,
Audio,
everything
visuals,
actually.
yes.
So it's all about communication. So at the end, it's not only communicate the concept, like deliver the concept, but it's a communication. So that's why when we are dealing with art project related to technology, we always consider audience. No matter it's a physical interaction or their involvement or how they react or involve, I would say.
But when you put something together, Joel, so when I was, I did several launches of channels, and you'll all sit there and you'll probably all griped about repeats, and you see the same program over and over and over again. So you always started with an inventory of so many hours that you had to, and television had to be 24 hours, and you sweated the assets of that content. And my strategy or my motivation interests me a lot. So it's always, why would you watch? Why would you watch? And I had this thing of, how do I bring the same person to the same program but with different eyes? And even if I could succeed, they question whether they've seen that program before. And it then became this thing of, okay, how do I present it? How do I promote it? How do I bookend it? So maybe the program I put before and the program after, do I promote all three? So sometimes maybe I could be, look at the presenter, look at the nature, look at the animal, look at Australia, look at, but each time was, let me see if I can make you think, have I seen that? I'm sure I've seen parts of that before, where in many ways our, or my experience of being an audience viewer or a participant in digital art can be quite fleeting, and let's face it, your moment of looking at some artworks is actually unique because it keeps evolving in front of you, and that's something very different to standing in front of a static painting.
I can relate to that experience. I run a media platform, a digital platform at that. So there's the website, and then the second primary platform is Instagram. And it's led me to actually almost really hate Instagram because I spend a lot of waking hours thinking about how many items we need to put out there. How do we make it visually look different and yet the same? So within the scope of art and culture that we cover, contemporary art, I did not come out of art school at a time when Instagram was viral. So I came to learn to curate shows and look at art and write about art by standing in front of it, by being in that space, in that room, and experiencing it in real life. But here I am now working on a platform where I need to think about, is it Instagrammable? And I wish for the artist's sake that they don't need to think about it, but I'm thinking about it all the time. And I think there's this hyper awareness of how the images are being consumed, how the art that is now translated to images is being consumed. So say like the Microwave Festival last year that I went to, I can tell you that the real life experience was so far from the photos that came out of it. And yet for me to then write about it and to disseminate it to our readers and to share and talk about it was through images only, trying to encourage them to go experience it, but not able to fully describe that feeling, what it's like to be in that space and working with the robotics, seeing them crawl on the floor. It's very different. And I think my personal struggle actually has been, we are now in the last maybe decade, I feel like, especially with the advancement of smartphone technology, increasingly it's about a digital consumption through our phones, through our tablets of art. And my fear is that we are losing the value. We're not expressing the value, the importance of actually seeing everything in real life. And this was an interesting point I came up with the pandemic, of course, because before the pandemic, flying from place to place was relatively easy for those that could afford it. It's a privileged thing, of course. But the accessibility of being able to go to shows around the world, to go to the museum across on another continent, it was still accessible. The last 2 years, that basically has been taken away from us. We've had nothing but digital consumption for shows outside of Hong Kong. And we're getting used to that. So my fear is that we're getting used to that. There is a discussion going around that maybe there'll be less fairs, maybe there'll be less shows, maybe people don't need to travel as much. We'll do everything through our phones, our tablets, VR technology, AR technology. But I don't think any of that can replace real life. My fear, though, is that we're going down that path.
The problem we have is those who have never experienced it. How then do you initiate, motivate the first experience of physical? And I have a belief it will keep evolving. I have a great philosophy of snowboarding and skiing, and I'm sorry we're sitting in Hong Kong and we're not necessarily great open to it, but when snowboarding started, every skier was like, oh, this is terrible, everybody's going so fast, we crash and everything, the slopes, this is the death of skiing. And this massive outcry from all of those who have skied for year after year after year. And what happened was all the teenagers were introduced to snow through snowboarding, and it was the skateboarding of the snow. And you can only do so much on a snowboard, and you can only fly and crash so many times. And by the time they were reaching 18, 19, they loved the mountains, they loved the snow, and actually found a transition to skiing as the next challenge because it's much more technical, much more difficult, and much more variety in it. And not only that, skiing, from going from more or less 2 or 3 techniques, ended up to about a dozen techniques, adopting some of the snowboarding as they came through, as well as clothes and styles and everything else. Now, we always have this like, oh, I'm a skier and I hate you snowboarders and it's going to kill skiing. You know, digital's going to kill physical. But will it? Once we reach that digital saturation and that part of, you know, maybe, wow, look at that. It's the same curry, the same food, the same taste I eat. And then you end up in a wet market and say, whoa, I never thought that piece of vegetable smelt like that, felt like that, and cuts like that. I don't know. To me, I hope the snowboarders I hope the snowboarders become physical art engagement as from the digital world of it. But my fear is that a lot of the physical experience now is still through a technology screen, because a lot of people still come up and go, and an experience is what they think is the capture of a memory to share, or an experience to share, rather than maybe experiencing it. It's a capture. It's a
Yeah, exactly. Talking about the technology development, I think we're still talking about the physical experience and the digital device or social media things. What we can foresee that the medium is keep evolving, keep improving, and at some point, I think that is high possibly we might be really only digital presence in the digital world. So in that future, I think we will not consider how the physical experience matters.
Yeah.
So we will only exist in the digital.
Yeah.
So that's why nowadays this kind of new technology is driving us to that point. For example, recently there are a lot of research on VR, AR, or even further, we have brain hacking device. and also digital transplanting on our like digital tattoo or transplanting some of the chemical in our body that enable us to really physically changing our physical experience to really a digitized world. So I think that would be another era that we will lose our body, or our consciousness will only exist in a digital world. Yeah.
I find that quite frightening, to be honest.
This is very sci-fi.
Yes, and yeah, that scares me.
Well,
all I
from my point of view, I always believe that technology is offering new experience instead to replace existing experience. We know the difference. For example, VR technology is offering us to experience something, someplace that you can go, like underwater, like in the space. Some district disappears, so we can revisit the heritage.
Or we play VR games where we're inside that space.
Yeah, exactly. So, from my point of view, it actually can be divided. In the near future, maybe it's a hybrid, physical world and then digital world. Like back to 20 years ago, we never thought that we would involve so much time on our cell phones or internet. That's Web 2.0. And then now we are marching to Web 3.0, which a lot of people don't know or cannot expect what's going on. And that's why we have fear, because we don't know what's going on. But at the same time, we look, technology is always two sides. It's not only positive or negative. It's how we cater it, how we serve on it. So a lot of people, no matter it's from creativities or technologists or scientists, we work together is trying to use technology to make a better living, better experience. And COVID is something that we have to fight now or cope with now. So digital technology somehow, in these couple years, it's not like eating up our life. It's like transforming our life somehow. But eventually, the world is changing. We don't know what's next, but these technology may help us to reform a hybrid new form of life.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. And I think need not to be really scared or worried, because we can tell from our experience. Actually, long before the cinema exists, the first cinematic experience, they have a train coming up from screen, and the people are really scared and think that is a real train coming up. So that what Joey mentioned about, we at this point maybe we cannot fully understand how future will be, but I believe that when we understand in the future, that would be not a really a scary matter.
I still remember my first VR artwork experience. It was actually Desmond's work from a few years ago.
Oh.
Put on a VR headset. They wired me up. I had to wear a backpack. But his artwork has no ground. So since I'm in the space, I felt like I was falling. And I remember the very first time I wore it, I instantly went to the ground where I could touch. And then I had to get used to it again.
Yeah, so that's changing the perception, and maybe the snowboarding experience can use. Also in the future, you can really using a digital tools to
but really where you're going is what will probably happen is the real world will be less interesting. The real physical world will be less interesting, because I've always got the ground under me unless I jump somewhere. And it will probably be more frightening and desolate. So if we look at where technologies are, but then art, if art's a commentary, a reflection, and sort of something about us and our culture, the more we're growing up. It was only, I think within the last 5 years, the Royal Academy has stopped drawing classes. So you can now be a student in the Royal Academy of Art and not draw, and never draw. And I was at a talk by the designer of Ferraris and everything else, and McLaren now, and he said, every intern I get, I want to see their sketchbook and their notebook. And they come with me with all these lovely CAD designs and presentation screens and everything else. Now, who really is right? He's holding on to his pencil and you can only be a designer if you've sketched it. Where actually, the technique and the ability of somebody as fluent and conversant on a software is probably far more capable for future design and art. So there's that element of we are in danger of changing our world into a digital world that we have so many more experiences in, and what's outside can stay outside.
I mean, that sort of transformation of the art world has been taking place before COVID already, before the pandemic, but it's greatly accelerated in these last couple of years. And it's always left me thinking, how do we look after the artists that are not working in these mediums yet, or maybe do not want to, that want to stay, I don't want to say classical, or conventional, but they want to work with paint, they want to work with pencil, with charcoal, which each have their own value and their own beauty and their own importance. But all these talks, like today, us talking about digital art, new media, that being the future, but can it be just one part of our future? Because we need a bigger world that fits everybody and all types of artists and curators. I don't know.
Well, I do think that we have options, for retaining the culture, retaining traditional art forms, and then from paintings, from sculptures, from live performances. I don't see technology is something that happens in our daily life, which it evolves every day, and it turns out to be, daily interventions. But traditional art or culture retain a lot of histories and heritage of human beings. So I believe it will still last. But just, different form of archiving.
Yeah, I think so. And also, when we can take the example of calligraphy. For example, nowadays we don't write a lot, but comparing to the medium changes in calligraphy. For example, back in the ancient age, the calligraphy was craft on the stone, and after we invent paper, we write on paper, and nowadays we use our cell phone to communicate. So when we having more further development, those kind of old context or old medium will not be like totally fade away. So it's all about how we can do the archive and
I'm looking at the time and thinking, I think we need to talk a little bit about blockchain, because Chris talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
So I know you have some thoughts to share about how you see blockchain technology and art together.
I think the blockchain art and recently NFT and the upcoming metaverse is getting a bubble bubble effect. As we can see, that there's a lot of NFT project came out, and that actually they don't use it in the right way, I think. Yeah.
People are exploring this, It's like a sea of new technologies, and then like a new tools happened. Because NFT, blockchain technology is actually a foundational technologies to promote about decentralizations. And then NFT are usually translated into a smart contract directly. So it's easy, it's created for artists, creators to own their artwork, and then instead of just passing it to galleries or centralized authorities. And then that's actually the basic. So I think the situation now is a lot of creative people, they would like to learn about this new technology and then see how they can evolve. Because in the past, somehow it's very difficult for people to create and then sell their piece. And then until we have internet, but then internet, is like a communicating platform for a lot of people. They don't know if they can trust somebody out there. So now it's a new trust system that evolved. by blockchain technology at the moment.
I mean, for me, the problematic thing, and I've been talking, I think, a year on this now, is that we interchange the terms too easily. I personally don't believe all NFT is art, strictly speaking. There is a whole category called collectibles. And that, for me, is what majority of NFTs that we call art right now actually should fit into. And then what I would personally really like to see is more artists learning the blockchain technology side of it, utilizing blockchain as a medium. And I can't come up with the answer. I'm not that creative, nor am I that good at tech. But I'd love to see what artists could do with that, rather than only going down the path of creating essentially a drawing, a painting, a digital illustration, minting it, calling it NFT, and then that becomes the new medium. I don't see that as our only way or the way to do it. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, since you guys do work with these technologies and have probably much more exposure than me with artists who are engaging in this.
There are a lot more possibility in blockchain art and creations. For example, what Joey mentioned about the smart contract things. As we can see that blockchain technology is very good for us to create a trust system and also create a mechanics that we can evolve the artwork through this kind of blockchain or smart contract ideas. So what I can see that in general NFT project, they don't have a good use of this kind of smart contract ideas. Or nowadays they just sell it like a membership system, and I believe that is underestimated the possibility of a blockchain technology. Yeah.
Well, to reach what you're looking forward, I think it's all about the collaborations. A lot of artists need support of the technology. It's not only about help them to create, make it into something else, but to collaborate, understand what actually blockchain technology could do. Back to like 4 to 5 years ago, I did a research on that and then made a curation on a festival edition on blockchain technology. And then I involved people from film industries and then schools, universities, and then digital artists, etc. A lot of people still a little bit confusing about how to do it. And then I think that part should be filled up with technologists. And then they need real collaboration. Like back to the 60s, 70s Fluxus period, like that kind of
And I think of it as
collaboration.
like architects and engineers having to come together.
Yeah, exactly.
Creative mind, the practical side.
And then that's why if you do some more research on, blockchain artwork nowadays, it's not many, actually. Very limited options.
But do you see that we will go down that path where we'll see more of these?
I think so. But now because, during pandemic, a lot of people, NFT technology seems, or say NFT, actually works very well with the pandemic situations. And then that's why it flood.
Yes.
And then we need more time to do the collaboration. We need people to meet physically to do the collaboration instead of, online. So I foresee that, but we need some time.
Sometimes I think it's a time thing too. We need more patience with projects now. I feel like, if anything, the pandemic has got us at a crazy speed of consumption, at a crazy speed of production or expectation of production. I'd like to see that we can slow down a bit again. And I'm sure these collaborations need significant amounts of time to sort of come to fruition. Henry,
I've been quiet. There's an element to this, if I look at it a different way. It is, in many ways, it's a disruptor. But it's not set up with a clear strategy of how to disrupt. The disruption it's there and there's a way of using it. And it's, like I was saying, it's evolving. And I've, in a slightly, I won't say cynical, but I suppose skeptical way, there is that element of like, I better get on the ride, because if I'm not on the ride, I won't get on in the future. So there's that sort of little bit of fear of missing out. So I better be in. And I think there's where it is in danger of being pulled away from some of what it can be is the speculator and speculative part of, ooh, I need to get in as well because I can have some ownership of that, I can create some value from it. And it's an accessible, pretty democratic way of getting into some art ownership that a lot of speculators will look and think, this will be worth it to me in the future, in a financial sense. And that then has the usual thing of, okay, if it's not set up with a direction in many ways of an attack, where will it is going to be pulled and pushed. Ultimately, it might arrive at the best place for it, but there's that part of that because it's tech and because it's there, it appeals to the sort of techie gamer bank financer type on that side, and they're in danger of pulling in a way that maybe the creative side wouldn't have particularly put it and pushed it.
But then that, of course, also helps us think, can this kind of technology, can this kind of art allow more, I don't want to say accessibility, I mean, it's accessible to anyone, but that popular consumption, that mass consumption of visual culture. I know for a fact with like PFP NFTs, you know, these apes, these CryptoPunks, I bought 2 kittens myself. There is, the thing is that it's a relatable thing. I think it's that a lot of people can, on a very, very personal level, relate now to PFP NFTs. Whereas I know I still get asked a lot of questions. Can you tell me about that painting? I don't get it. And I see that as one of the consumption things that have changed, the methods by which we consume and the audience who are consuming.
Yeah, and when when we were saying about and that word accessibility, and I thinking through, I wrote a couple of notes, and I'm like, quantity, quality, and we've become so much is quantity and measure anything, the old thing, anything that can be measured gets done. We just count everything. When emails started, every senior manager, I have 300 emails a day, as though that's important. And it's like probably 290 are just useless. And television has suffered. The more it is, the poorer it is.
Yeah.
And that's not an old guy saying, in my day, it was great, But it really has, because sadly, there is a similar pot that's spread more thinly across, and it gets cheaper and cheaper production than everything else. And then we get less critically acclaimed, less judgmental, and we go everywhere as long as it's some visually stimulating or some form of event, to the point of them maybe dropping it. And even then, you add on now with the algorithms where it's feeding you similar things, so you don't venture outside. And where I pitched a new channel to an operator about 10 years ago, and they said, well, we keep doing ratings and we keep doing surveys of our subscribers. They want more vampires and more cooking. Now, to me, it's like, why are you a TV exec when you're having the viewers tell you, I like vampires and I'd like some more? If we did everything by the viewer, where's the next genre? Where's the next idea? Where's the next? And we've seen it. TV has become less creative and more copy. One talent show works, everywhere has a talent show. Everything has to be a talent show. And we then put it into every kind of thing, cooking, art, fashion, because we copy, because that brought viewers. And there's a part to me now where it's this, okay, we keep saying the more people we get to engaged and look at, the more popular art is. Popular. Popular. And is that the measure we should be? So maybe the one person who goes to a gallery with one painting in it and they sit for 5 hours in front of it is much more something succeeded than 500 come in to see 50 paintings and spend 5 seconds in each one.
Yeah, whether footfall is the correct measure is very questionable. And I am guilty of being that person that sits in front of a painting for a long time.
Yeah, and I kind of say, because I went to a Basquiat exhibition in London from private collections. I spent every minute of the 10 hours it was open, because I kept thinking, I'll never see this again. I'll never, ever see it again. And I don't know, I'm kind of, is there some form of qualitative part to it now?
It's similar to now the flooding of phenomenon of NFT project. What I believe that only quality blockchain art or NFT project will only exist in this kind of phenomenon. This also, I think, is sort of similar to what you mentioned, because there's too much popular program. But when we having so much rampant program drama, only a quality production or program will be really popular. I mean,
Or stay.
Or stay long. Yeah.
Do you have audience targets, Joel? Do you have like targets for how many people come to something?
Footfall target. Footfall KPI.
Footfall, yeah.
KPI.
We don't have KPI.
Very good.
I don't have.
Now, on that note, I'm also your timekeeper. So with the time that's remaining, I'd like to open the floor up for questions. Sarah will bring a mic over.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Are you there? Yep. I'm a little bit older than most of you, and I think, having gone through the process of learning about art and taste and so on, if you get to a point where people are redesigning what Pininfarina did 60 years ago and trying to glam it up into something which it isn't, then the concept of how your taste changes has nothing to do with technology. It's to do fundamentally with the taste option changes. And meaning only matters when you attach value to it. So if you have Basquiat today, his prices would be very low because he'd be wearing an NFT. And that's just rubbish. It's nothing. It's like Warhol. So when people buy things which have essentially value, it's only value which is attached to the price that it gets. And that's fundamentally why technology has become a problem. So we define the value of something by the fact that other people have valued it at a higher price. And that's why technology is important, but only irrelevant in as far as taste doesn't really matter in this case. Why am I nervous? My take is, if you look at people like Marlene Dumas, for example, or you look at Richter, to two extremes, what they're actually doing is working fundamentally with one thing. They make a picture by using nothing but a piece of wood with a stick on. And this becomes valuable because you only see one thing which you attach value to. When you look at things which are NFTs, which is, you have a nice Chinese word called fa'afong. It's a bullshit thing. It's nothing. It has no meaning of any kind, but people attach value because they think it's worthwhile, because it's an investment. So my brief with technology is that we have been sold something. It'll eventually, in another 10 years, it'll come with a health warning. Like academia, it'll get to a point where it's no longer relevant because anybody can make this happen. And art can be made by anybody. If you look around, I mean, real art is what people make, paintings, not things which are copies of something like, dare I say, I don't want to say the person's name, but you know, the things that are made in G-clays in vast quantities with a stamped signature. What has that to do with art? What are you buying? buying a signature which somebody stamped or made. That has nothing, in my opinion. So by the same token, if you have something like an NFT, what are you buying? What has that got to do with art? That's why fashion has become so prevalent in our society that people go out and pay money for jeans that are torn. I mean, what is that? It's ridiculous. You know, a handbag is just a handbag. It's nothing. It's not a genius designer. And I think young people, I'm going to be 80 next year, so I've gone through the whole thing and I've looked at various things at which the stages. And if you look at very beautiful paintings, Marcus, wonderful paintings that are beautifully done, what you compare that to is what people assume painting should be about: bright colors and big quantities, like Warhol. I mean, it's just, you know, Warhol made a statement which was fantastic, relevant then. Why are his prices so high now? Because people are deluded into believing this is something which is called an investment. What does it mean? What's an investment? To make more money for what? Why do you need more money? You need more taste and you need more style. So meaning only matters in that context. I'm rambling, sorry, okay?
Your mic.
Yeah.
If I can ask another question, perhaps for Henry. We are certainly dealing with a disruptive, I would say, technology, or a disruptive movement. Let's call it that way. You work in MTV. You had experience of being a disruptor. MTV changed the course of history back in the 80s, right? What is perhaps like, you were part of it, right? Bobby's and Butthead and Pimp My Ride and so on, right? And you changed the way that this generation, the generation that is not adulting, think, right? So from a disruptor point of view, what are like the lessons that perhaps you learned from that period as a disruptor, and what are those elements, perhaps from a philosophical principle, let's call it that way, what are those elements that you can perhaps pass to us, for example, the people that are attending here?
It was the 90s, Jacobo, I'm not 80s into 90s. And I was MTV Europe, and Europe was the sort of, came from Europe to Asia, and from the States to Europe. The disruptions and the disruptors at the time fit into groups. The main disruption was to television and national broadcasting by national channels that were licensed by national governments. And MTV, CNN, HBO, Discovery, and a sports channel, were the first group, basically very genre-specific led, of satellite cable TV and pay TV channels. And they became they still are the big ones, if we still have the big media companies existing. MTV was part of that group, so it was music. We had music, documentaries, news, movies, basically, sport. So that was the first disruption going on in a televisual world, and that they were pan-national. So they were regional, and we broadcast throughout Europe. Single channel, available all the time, all the way through Europe. And at the launch, English language. Didn't matter where you were, English language. Now, the next disruptor, so that challenged the whole national TV and national TV audiences. The great thing that challenged and disrupted was advertising. So we sold adverts for pan-European advertisers, which broke the hold of advertising from FMCG, which was like, buy this laundry powder to wash your clothes in, and it was suddenly Mercedes are launching a new car, there's a new telephone, Nokia's launching, and it was throughout across Europe. And they wanted regional markets because tech was coming through. The third disruptor was segmentation of audiences. And if we were talking about technology, I think the first technology was the portable TV that allowed multiple TV families, where it had gone from one TV, usually in the living room, and one person controlling which button you pressed to which channel was on at which time, suddenly became, oh, the kids can go up into the bedroom and have their TV, the one in the kitchen can cook while the TV's on, and you had television around you, but your type of TV playing to you. And the big disruptor for MTV in that way then was, we take youth. We have the youth market, and secondly, we take music. And the great disruptor within the television industry was we created what was an audio medium into a visual medium with video. And even better, the record companies or the music companies paid the production costs for the videos to promote the song and artist. So MTV was the cheapest form of television because you had these massively great produced high quality videos, and literally our television per hour was maximum 12 minutes, which was usually a VJ standing in front who became very much of that day an influencer, and became celebrities that still now exist as TV presenters, from 18 years old in MTV to a national treasure of daytime TV in BBC or ITV now in Britain, whatever. So there were several disruptions, Jacob, going on in this. And to me, each one you knew where you were disrupting, which is probably why I say about the NFT blockchain part, is that it's been pulled, and no one pulled it. It was this move. Now, where those traditional TV companies and media now are, they have not been able to work out the disruption that finally came to them, which was video on demand and streaming through the Netflix style. And what are they doing? They've all caught themselves and thought, oh, we follow what Netflix are doing. So we've all launched our own platforms. So has Netflix disrupted those traditional media, and now they're all creating a Netflix platform? Or should they have really said, what's next after Netflix? Because funnily enough, Netflix is suffering. And what's Netflix's idea of recovery? Oh, we maybe should do advertising, which would break the whole thing, and rather than what the next form is. So there's this a cyclical part of when the original disruptors become the conventional and established, and they're disrupted, they tend not to be able to disrupt again. And I think on the lesson part of it, to me, is if you disrupt and you're not having an exit of, okay, we take this to a point when we are established and we get out, then you need to be able to be a continuous disruptor, and you keep disrupting yourself. And there's a part with my background where I say I always take the next new challenge. I have to sometimes, because I want to disrupt where I am, and it's not always welcomed.
Now, on that, do we have time for one more?
Yeah. I think one more question, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hello. First of all, thank you for being here and answering questions for us. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, but I like the analogy about the skateboard, the snowboard, and the skiing. It really made a lot of sense to me about trends. But I think I wanted to ask more about the archiving question about art. I like making art as well. I do art myself, not as seriously as you guys, like Art Basel, but you know, I have paper at home, it's on the wall. But then I do question, like, should I do digital art? Like, should I give up paper? Should I give up pen? Because I just need to save data onto my computer, and I can take it on my laptop anywhere, but then it also makes me very sad because I don't want to sacrifice that, but at the same time, it feels like it's the right thing to do because I work with primary kids, and they all say, "Oh, teacher, it's about the environment. It's about, you know, you don't want to waste paper and stuff like that." And then it makes me wonder, am I doing something wrong? Like, am I the person who's not making the right choices? So I just wanted to ask you guys, like, what, as artists, like, what's the right choice to make? Because I personally don't know. Like, that's my question to you guys.
Maybe I go first. I think it's a really, really good question because we talked a little bit before the talk. We have talked about it, how we can archive data or kind of a preservation of the art, and I think that's interesting because when we're talking about the technologies keep evolving or keep advancing, we compare some rather old medium. It's very hard to archive. For example, when we go back to like keeping the floppy as a data, now we can't use any available tools that to reopen the floppy or the tape. This is very difficult actually when we're talking about every generation of the technology changes. So it also happened to the broaching art as well. It claimed that it will not be disappear or always exist in a cloud of things, the server. But actually, it's
cloud somewhere.
Yeah, so it somehow that is quite difficult even in broaching art as well. So there's no, I believe there's no right way to doing archive. I appreciate that still using like a paper to documenting or to archive the things. Yeah, that's for me it's no right way.
Well, first of all, I do think there is no right or wrong. You're the artist, you design your tools. And then it's not, making art is not only about, catering for the environment. It's also always you have to remember your core reason why you want to make art. And then if we are talking about archive issues, anyone heard about a kind of art form called Cd-Rom Art?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's once in a while. Cd-Rom Art's once been a very popular art form by that period of time when interactive technology just start working with that. And we all use Cd-Rom by that time. And then we don't have any Cd-Rom nowadays. But still, there are Cd-Rom Arts archives. So people can still...
I remember one thing is I used Dreamweaver to create a CD-ROM interactive artwork before.
So yes, artists also, play with different tools as well. But also when you want to archive your artwork, you always find different ways. Even though CD-ROM artwork nowadays, we still make it asking creative programmer Coder to help us to convert the codes. And they make it all the same online as like a website nowadays. But those are actually archive a period of time, how artists work with the medium about CD-ROM. So I don't think there is any right or wrong. Just find your way to archive your work, no matter taking pictures, scan it, using an app, whatever. But pick your tools because you believe in it, instead of because, it's popular.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer your question about the school kids. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we are teaching kids to be more aware of the environment, of the notion of sustainability at their level. So trees and paper is an easy one because they can see a tree, they can see a piece of paper, they can physically use it and touch it. How old are your kids, the kids that you teach? Yeah, so they're probably at that point of, just at that point of being able to start learning more about things like carbon emissions. Realistically, technology has its downside. It has its dark side. All this stuff that we talk about, NFT, all this stuff that we talk about, digital art, digital illustration, from their level, if we're going to talk about trees, we can also say to them, look, You being on your smartphone all day or that tablet all day or drawing on a tablet, you're using technology. You're consuming electricity. Electricity comes from somewhere. There is carbon emissions involved. That hurts the environment too. So I can't make that choice for you. None of us can. Yeah, you know, you are working for a school. The school makes the choice. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using paper and crayons and pencils and paint. Every material has a consequence. Every material has a good thing about it and a bad thing about it. And we just have to choose. We have to weigh up the pros and the cons for ourselves and choose. And you as a teacher, that for you as well. And then you as an artist, same thing, pros and cons. And again, as Joel said, like, look deep as to where you started. What is it that makes you enjoy it the most? Don't feel like you have to follow a trend or follow a new medium just because a lot of people are. It should make you happy.
I think that's a really good place to end, to volunteer my speakers and to thank them as well. Maybe you can, they're here in the flesh, so ask them a question after this talk too. Yeah, please help me thank them as well for their time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.